Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of Just One Thing for Health, Physicians on Call. Tonight we have Dr. Bandana Chawla from Houston, Texas. She is not only a physician who's plant-based and appreciates the benefits of the plant-based lifestyle, but I can call her friend. So I'm very happy to announce you, and please tell us, Dr. Chawla, a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I am an internal medicine physician in Houston, Texas. I have been in internal medicine for 20 years, but for the last 3 years or so, I've gotten very passionate about using plant-based nutrition to help prevent and treat and even reverse chronic diseases. And over the last year, I've gotten very passionate about lifestyle medicine as well. And I actually took the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine exam October of 2018 and passed it. So I am now board certified in lifestyle medicine and looking forward to making that a big part of my practice.
Excellent. So how did you begin this path? What turned you on to the knowledge of benefits of a plant-based lifestyle?
So for me, it was my patients. The end of 2012, the universe just kept sending me plant-based and vegan patients. And so that forced me to do the research, and they educated me as well on all aspects, health, environmental, and ethical, of eating this way. So I like to make the joke that you hear about people eating healthier because their doctor had a talk with them. In my case, the doctor became vegan or plant-based and started eating healthier because the patients had a talk with me.
That's wonderful. Well, what did they say? Did they tell you that they were there with just the general concern about if it was the appropriate thing to do, or did they have a health concern that they believed would be cured or reversed because of plant-based lifestyle?
No, many of them, some of them were doing it for ethical reasons. So I had like a 65-year-old Indian woman who had been vegetarian all her life, but had now become vegan because her kids made her aware of what happens in the dairy industry. And then there were some coming in who were reversing or getting off of some of their medications for diabetes and high blood pressure. And then I specifically remember this one pharmacy student, young lady, 27-year-old, who came in and she had stopped using her single layer and Advair inhaler for her asthma, and had said that she doesn't need it anymore because she has quit dairy and become plant-based, and because she's quit dairy, that she doesn't need her asthma medications anymore. So that I was really kind of almost annoyed with, because I was like, she's a pharmacy student, she should know better. Why would she just stop taking her asthma medications? So I had my, instead of getting mad at her, I had my medical assistant run a spirometry test on her, pulmonary function test, right? So while the test is going on, I'm writing in the chart, patient being non-compliant with medications, just like we're taught to do. And then my medical assistant brings me the results, and they're way better. They're way better than they were 3 months ago when she was taking her single layer regularly and was taking her Advair regularly, and her asthma was well managed, right? Now it was way better than what I had helped her in terms of having well managed asthma. So when the patients start proving you wrong, then you have to go do the research for yourself. And then there's mounds of evidence. I mean, when you start looking, the research really is crystal clear that this way of eating is optimal for our health and wellness.
Right. I think it's fascinating that the patients knew to stop their own medications, and that you were the one who said, wait a minute, that's not really what you're supposed to be doing. But so did you learn any of that in medical school? Anything could lead you to the knowledge that food had that power?
No, unfortunately, we did not get much preventive medicine or nutrition training in medical school. And that's what I tell a lot of my patients, to be patient with their doctors, because the doctors really don't know. And so it's part of your job to educate your doctors. And trust me, our egos might get hurt a little bit initially, but in the long run, it is so much better for us and so much better for our future patients. So I'm like really appreciative of the patients who educated me, because they've not only helped me live a healthier and happier life, but they've helped numerous of my patients who they don't even know, who have now gotten influence with the education that I have gotten. And there's actually a documentary coming out. So if you guys can go look up Code Blue Doc, DOC. DOC stands for documentary and doctor. So codebluedoc.org, I believe. And it's all about how the medical schools and residency programs are not taught any of this. And it's about bringing lifestyle medicine into medical schools and residency programs. So physicians could be better educated and they can help their patients. I mean, there's just such a disconnect right now in the medical field between the diseases and the causes of the diseases. And we're not wanting to even accept that food is such a huge part of chronic diseases. I mean, the number one cause of death in cardiologists in this country is heart disease. And that should not be the case. Talk about a disconnect, right? They're dying of exactly what their patients are dying of. The number one cause is heart disease in the general population, and number one cause of death in heart doctors is also heart disease.
That's a very sad statistic.
Yeah.
Very sad. So you obviously had an open mind about it. Do you feel like maybe not all physicians have the same open mind? Maybe some of us have a little more work to do than your patients had?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it didn't happen with the very first patient for me either, right? So part of it is that multiple hip theory. You keep getting that exposure from various places, from various people, and that will eventually, so some people it may take 5 hits for them to go do the research. For some people, it may take 20 hits, but you got to plant those seeds. You got to be one of those hits. And it may not be your exposure that causes them to do it. It may be the 5th or the 7th person that comes along giving them the same information that causes it. But it's eventually gotta, I mean, unless we're really, really stubborn.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you listened to your patients and found this out. And I think that the interview that you had with Dr. Barnard was really wonderful. I'm like Lynn, and I think it was a great interview. When did you first meet Dr. Barnard? You had the opportunity to be in a private setting with Dr. Barnard, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And that's actually what made me a plant-based physician. So, so February 2013 is when I had become vegan, but really, again, that disconnect really didn't change my practice at all. I just realized that's my way of eating and I'm feeling healthier and better. But I really didn't make an effort to make my patients healthier and better, which I'm a little embarrassed about that now. But yeah, for about 2 years, I kept writing those prescriptions for cholesterol medications, diabetes medicines, which I still do now. But at least now I give my patients an alternative. I let them know these are the medicines for cholesterol and these are their side effects, which we're also not taught very much to give side effects of medications. And I tell them, or you could change your diet and exercise and lower your cholesterol that way. And, you know, those numbers do come down with that as well. Not only do those numbers come out, other aspects of your health improve as well. And you decrease risk for developing other chronic diseases, including autoimmune diseases and cancer. So, so February of 2016, 2015 is when I found out about PCRM. So I was already aware of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and was already moving in that direction, very slowly though. So I had done some CME on the PCRM website, and yeah, I was already kind of getting affiliated with them because when Dr. Barnard was here February 2016 for actually Dr. Baxter Montgomery's conference, they had a little PCRM dinner at Dr. Garth Davis's house, and somehow we got invited to that. And so I got to meet him at this dinner, and I don't know what we were talking about, I guess this stuff, and then he basically said to me, you need to do more. You need to be a plant-based doctor. You need to talk to your patients about switching their diet. And that just somehow did something. And that really caused me to come out of my shell of just doing what I was taught in medical school in terms of pills and procedures. And it made me start spending a lot of time with my patients. And talking to them about their diet and you know what they should be doing and how it really, you know, what the research was out there and how World Health Organization in just October of 2015 had declared processed red meats to be group 1 carcinogens in the same category as cigarette smoking, asbestos exposure, HPV, the highly virulent strains, and the unprocessed red meats to be in group 2B category, which is probably causes cancer, whereas processed red meat was in causes cancer category. So yeah, so I started talking to my patients on something else besides just writing for pills once they were diagnosed with something. It used to be, okay, you have diabetes, it's this pill. If you're allergic to this pill, it's this other pill. If you have cholesterol, it's this pill. And so, yeah, so my practice changed after I met him. And then I recently met him again, August of this year, 2018, when we went to Washington, D.C. for the PCRM's International Conference of Nutrition and Medicine, I think it's called.
I bet that's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I learned a lot.
So he, Dr. Barnard seems to have a big focus on dairy. And I know that that's a really important thing to get out of your diet for health. What is your take on dairy? How do you inform your patients about the dangers of dairy and the benefits of getting rid of it?
Yeah. So dairy is something, it's interesting because some people are already starting to realize that dairy is not healthy for them. So and there's so many alternative milks out there that many people have already tried that in a lot of ways, it's not so hard to have that conversation now. So my son, who's a teenager, was told by his dermatologist, who's not a vegan or a plant-based doctor, to quit the dairy for his acne. So many patients have heard the link between dairy and acne. And like that pharmacy student who had figured out the link between dairy and asthma, a lot of people have also figured out the link between dairy and allergies because it increases the mucus in our sinuses and increases nasal congestion. People have seen for themselves that when they take off the dairy, their allergy symptoms improve. Now so these are kind of a little bit more known links with dairy, but they're also a little bit more minor. There are some other major risks with dairy that are unfortunately not as well known. And that would be risks of certain cancers, especially cancers that are hormonally related. So that would be like ovarian cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer. And the reason that is because dairy has a lot of hormones. And so even like organic dairy, people say, oh, we only do organic milk. Even that has a lot of hormones naturally. So the cow will only produce milk if she's had a baby, just like any other mammal. Just like us, just like cats, just like dogs, just like goats, just like sheep. Any mammal only gives milk, which was something I'm ashamed to say I did not know. And I was a biology major as an undergraduate. And it was just, our culture makes us think, and even Indian culture, which does a lot of dairy, makes us think that cows just give milk all the time, naturally. That's what they do. They're here to give us milk. And that's not what they're here for. They produce milk for their baby, just like I produce milk twice in my life for my two babies. So when they're either pregnant or they've just had a baby, estrogen levels are very high in the cows. And those estrogen levels are also high in the milk. So high estrogens that comes to us then does affect those cancers. Another thing that dairy has that is also bad for cancers is something called IGF-1, which is insulin-like growth factor 1. So insulin-like growth factor 1, its job is to cause everything to grow very fast. So that includes cancer cells. So yeah, insulin-like growth factor, it just wants things to grow. That's what it's there for. And it has IGF-1 in the milk, in the dairy, and it raises our IGF-1 too. So there are two hits we're getting with IGF-1 with dairy. One, it increases our levels of IGF-1, and it has IGF-1. So yeah, and when you think about it, dairy is milk for baby calf. And if I have the numbers right, baby calves are about 65 pounds when they're born. And within a span of 2 years, they become full-grown cows, which are about 1,500 pounds. So this fluid, its main job is to take a 65-pound calf and turn it into a 1,500-pound cow very quickly. So, of course, we inject growth hormones further in this country, which are banned. Bovine growth hormones are banned in Australia and Japan and Europe and other first world countries, but the dairy industry has too much lobbying power here for it to be banned. So we're adding on even more growth hormones than what's already naturally there, so we can get these cows to give way more milk than they would naturally. So we are just really making things even worse. So dairy is already dangerous, and then we're making it even more dangerous with current factory farming practices.
Absolutely. So that's a big passion for Dr. Barnard too, I know. And in his recent book, The Cheese Trap, talks about the addiction to cheese. So dairy in and of itself is bad for us, but cheese is what almost everyone would say, oh, I could never go plant-based because I love cheese.
Yeah.
Why is that? I know there's a reason that...
There is a reason, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault. Cheese is very addicting. And the reason is, okay, so the milk has something called caseomorphins, which is a kind of addicting thing because it's a form of a morphine that's in milk. And nature put it in because it wants the calf to stay close to the cow and not wander off too far. And so some of the casomorphins are there in milk as well, but the thing is, when milk is turned into cheese, when the water part of the milk is taken out, the casomorphins get very concentrated. So cheese has just much higher levels of it than other dairy products. So it absolutely is very addicting. And the food industry has figured that out. And that's why they've really increased cheese in so many things. I mean, the pizza with extra cheese, and even within my lifespan, I've noticed increased amount of cheese in things have been placed. You know, when we used to eat pizza 30 years ago, it was not nearly as cheesy as it is now. Or even food in Mexican restaurants wasn't as cheesy as it is now. And they've really started adding cheese to a lot of things in the school lunches, because, you know, you want to get them addicted as early as possible, because then they'll be good consumers for decades to come.
Right. So how do you feel about the alternative cheeses? How about the faux cheese products on the market? What is your take on those?
I think they're great for transition. If you're wanting to get off of dairy, but you're not ready to give up the cheese, by all means, use the alternative cheeses. I mean, we have some at our home right now for the kids. Kite Hill cream cheese is great. They use that on their bagels instead of Philadelphia. And actually, Kite Hill cream cheese only has like 3 or 4 ingredients. I think it's just like almonds and cultures and salt or something, which Philadelphia cream cheese has like a whole list of ingredients with a lot of chemicals you can't even pronounce. So in that case, yes, it's definitely healthier than what they were eating before. However, in the long run, a lot of the vegan cheeses or alternative cheeses do have a lot of oil. So that is not all that healthy. It is still very much high calories and not that much nutrition. In general, as plant-based doctors, we recommend a nutrient-dense diet, not a calorie-dense diet. So you want to eat foods that are high in nutrients, but low in calories, which ends up being, if you eat whole plant foods, you know, legumes, basically only thing that is high calorie that is still whole plant food would be nuts and seeds. Other than that, it's all pretty much low calorie, high nutrient foods. And nuts and seeds are fine to do too, again, in small portions because they're such high calories. So yeah, the alternative cheese, because a lot of them, if you read the ingredients, will either have like coconut oil or some other form of oil, are still somewhat processed food, right? So we don't recommend too much of it, but absolutely worth using that to get rid of your cheese addiction and transition to this diet.
Right. Do you feel like your patients are fairly receptive to the concept of plant-based nutrition?
It depends. Some of them are. Some of them have already watched Forks Over Knives and what's the other one recently? What the Health? What the Health. So they're already aware of a lot of things. Some of them, I am their first exposure. I'm that first hit. So they're not ready yet. But that's okay. I keep planting those seeds. They get a little more ready at the next appointment. And sometimes they'll do baby steps. Some of them will start doing meatless Mondays. Some of them will start doing 1 meal a day that is plant-based. And for a lot of people, oatmeal for breakfast is doable. So we work on wherever they are. I try to meet them wherever they are, and then we just move in that direction. And I love this new term called plant forward, because that means that we are going to work in that direction to move towards a plant-based diet. So plant forward person is a person who is decreasing animal foods and decreasing processed foods and increasing plant foods at their own pace. So sometimes in their journey, they take leaps. And sometimes in their journey, they can only take baby steps. And that's okay. And a lot of my patients are very comfortable with that. They say, okay, doc, I can call myself plan forward. I'm going to go tell my family I'm plan forward now. But they're not yet ready to call themselves plant-based. That's a little too strict for them.
And they're having health improvements, even at that slower pace, you can tell.
Even at that pace, and they can tell. They come back next time and tell me that, I only eat meat on certain days, or I went 3 months without eating meat and I felt fine, I felt great. And then on Thanksgiving, I went ahead and had turkey. Is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. You keep moving in that direction and you're doing great. And so I can tell in terms of their blood work, their blood pressure a lot of times, their blood sugars, their uric acid level, their fatty liver is going away, their cholesterol is improving, the diabetes numbers are getting better. And they can tell subjectively in terms of increased energy, even reversal of erectile dysfunction. So a lot of the men are quite happy to see those changes.
Oh, I bet.
There's some nice little side effects that plant-based diets give.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you're right that they're very happy about that. What are some of the biggest success stories that you've seen? Who are some patients that really stand out with improved
I
health?
guess the biggest success stories that always stand out are the weight ones.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my patients has gone from 305 pounds to 185 pounds.
Wow.
So it's
Wow.
I mean, the ones where people are coming out of insulin and other things are super exciting too. But the weight loss things is just so palpable, right? So visible to not just me and them, but to their friends and family. And so those are always exciting.
Right. Do they jump fully in after they see the benefits, or do they still kind of take a little time? What do you see most often?
So I'll tell you about one of the ones that comes to mind. It was this young graduate student, late 20s. And when he first came to me, he was about 300 pounds. So late 20s, already so much weight, already had high cholesterol, already had diabetes, had fatty liver, and was on depression medicines. So he had already, actually, I can't take credit for him in terms of talking him into this, because he had already researched it and come to realize that plant-based diet is what's going to help him. So he came to me specifically because I'm listed on the Plant-Based Doctor's website. So he wanted my help to transition to that, which I am happy to do. This is what my passion is. So over time, I saw his hemoglobin A1C, the diabetes test, go from diabetes to pre-diabetes to no diabetes. And I saw his cholesterol go from high to normal to excellent. I saw his fatty liver go from fatty liver to completely resolved. And he actually got off of depression medicines himself. And at one of the visits to me said he realized he didn't need it anymore with this new lifestyle. And then he said that he is about 90% plant-based. So all of these improvements were happening. He wasn't 100%, he was 90%. He says, every once in a while, my old nemesis, cheese pizza, still gets me.
Oh, wow.
I remember his sentence. But now, like over a year into this, he actually ran the Houston Marathon last January. And he is kind of switching majors from music. He's considering becoming a health coach. And he has now even ran an ultra marathon, I believe 50 miles.
Wow.
So now he's completely plant-based. But it took him about 2 years to do that. And you know, he sees the benefits, so it's when he's ready. He's now ready to be completely plant-based.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah. He's one of my star patients.
And does he allow you to talk to other patients? I know that you would never use a name, but just to give
Yeah.
his entire story as a motivation for other patients.
Yeah, he is perfectly fine with that. Yeah, he's actually, brought in his mother. I now see his mother and his sister. His father is still very much not ready for this diet. So he hasn't come in to see me yet. But we're hoping in the future, as he sees his daughter get healthier, his wife get healthier, he's already seen his son get healthier, that will change his mind too.
I hope so. So tell us more about the ACLM certification, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. How did you first learn about that and decide to begin that journey?
Yeah, so as I was getting more and more excited about these things, besides nutrition, I saw myself talk to patients about exercise, about even using mindfulness techniques, because part of when you start learning mindfulness, you start becoming a little mindful in other aspects of your daily life, including eating. So I was starting to use these, and my teenager boys were starting to say, "Mom, you're becoming a hippie doctor." And I used to say, "No, I'm just becoming a holistic doctor." And then when I saw American College of Lifestyle Medicine and what their things that they focus on, then I was like, no, I was becoming a lifestyle medicine doctor this whole time. So lifestyle medicine, really focuses on 6 big aspects, and that is nutrition. And they do recommend a whole food plant-based diet because they're a very evidence-based field. And the evidence is, like I said, clear out there that this is the only diet that can reverse chronic diseases. Only diet that's been shown to reverse heart disease. There are other diets, including ketogenic diet and Atkins diet, that can make you lose weight, but they have never been shown to improve your heart disease risk long term, right? So let's come back to the 6 points. So nutrition, plant-based diet, exercise, importance of exercise. And again, we have specific numbers like 150 minutes a week if you're trying to just maintain your health and maintain your weight. But if you're trying to lose weight or improve your health, it needs to go up to 300 minutes a week or even up to 420 minutes a week. Over 420 minutes a week, it just kind of plateaus off, and the benefits you get are very small. So we tell people an hour a day is enough. And then importance of stress management. And that's where the mindfulness activities kind of come in. So there's a lot of research that shows anything that keeps us present in the present moment shoots down those stress hormones. And part of our health problems is we have these chronic stress hormones all the time in the modern world. So anything that decreases those stress hormones during the day really improves our health in more ways than we thought possible. So just to give you a few examples of mindfulness activities, yoga counts, meditation counts, gardening counts, playing a musical instrument counts, a lot of things, really anything that you are so focused on. Like when you're reading notes to play a musical instrument, you really can't think of anything else. You really can't worry about the past or the future. You are there in the moment. And that is great for our physical and emotional health, it turns out. Okay, so we're done with nutrition, exercise, stress management. The other important aspects are sleep, avoidance of tobacco and alcohol, and healthy relationships. So these are the 6 things. And so to study for the exam, we have to do certain modules, we have to do certain online CME, certain webinars, certain in-person CME, which the PCRM conference counted towards the in-person CME. Yeah, and then take the exam.
So how did you prepare, other than the CMEs, how did you prepare for the exam?
Well, basically those modules, and I bought, they also send a board review manual that you can do, so we studied that. And then just kind of practiced with my patients, just kept telling them about the studies I was reading about, Adventist health studies and nurses nurses study and health professionals study and health professional follow-up studies and Dean Ornish's studies, so many Pritkin studies, so many studies out there that are showing the benefits of using lifestyle, including nutrition, to improve our health.
It's wonderful how much information is there. I just wish that everybody saw it.
I know. Yeah.
You just mentioned something that made me take a note. You said not just 150 minutes per week of exercise if you want to lose weight, but up to 300 minutes per week, or 420 is like the max. Can you walk for a longer period of time on one day? I'm training for a half marathon.
Yeah.
Can you walk for a longer period of time on 2 days a week? That 300 minutes or 420 minutes, or is it really better to spread it out?
No, it can be however it works for you, as long as you're getting those minutes a week.
Okay.
So like I tell my patients, so for ones who are just right now starting off and just wanting to do 150 minutes a week, I tell them that's really only 20 something minutes a day.
Right.
If that's how you want to do it, 7 days a week, 20 something minutes a day, do that. If that's not possible, and if you want to do it 5 days a week, then you've got to do 30 minutes, right? 5 times 30 is 150 minutes.
Right.
If you want to do it 3 days a week, then you do it longer. You figure, I mean, people have to figure it out according to their schedule. We've got to make it somewhat flexible and they may want to do one day really long time and the other days short. Like for some of my patients, they do it much longer on weekends. Because their work schedule is so hard on weekdays, and then just a little bit on the weekdays if you can. Gotcha. But if you can't, I mean, if you can only do 75 minutes Saturday and 75 minutes Sunday, that's 150 minutes. Do that. Yeah.
Good. Do you think it's important maybe to have a little mix of some strength training though, put in with that exercise? If you're just a walker, I'm just a walker.
Yeah, I know. So lifestyle medicine's really strict in the sense that they really want us to practice what we preach. And for most things, I was already kind of practicing what I was supposed to preach and what the studies were showing. One thing I did have to add on because of lifestyle medicine was strength training and resistance training. 45 years of my life, I did no strength or resistance training, and I'm doing it now because lifestyle medicine wants me to do it twice a week, preferably. So to prevent osteoporosis and to prevent old age muscle loss and sarcopenia, and for just health in general, because they really want us to do all three. They want us to do endurance, cardiac. They want us to do balance, flexibility, which I was getting from yoga, and endurance and cardiac I was getting from little running and walking, and strength and resistance training. So all three.
Okay. I'll have to work on that.
Yeah.
So your husband also went through the ACLM licensing or certification with you, didn't he?
He did. So my husband's a radiologist. But he's been, so part of lifestyle medicine, we started practicing, right, what I was learning and what I was telling my patients to do. So for a lot of my patients, to help them lose weight or help them avoid acid reflux, I would tell them, go take a walk outdoors after dinner. So again, like since I'm telling my patients, let's do it together. So my husband and I started walking together after dinner. Well, a large part of these walks ended up, one, gossips, which is always a great bonding experience, and two, ended up being stories about my patients who are getting so much better. And that inspired him, and reading the China study, and he ended up, reading a lot of the stuff as well, because we started actually a blog together, and he ended up doing a lot of the research for the blog, and then he started finding out about these studies and health benefits. And anyways, long story short, he became very passionate about this too. So he is actually going to be transitioning out of radiology into lifestyle medicine. And he did take the exam with me, and he did pass it as well. So we'll see how that goes. We've never worked together before, but we may be doing that soon.
That's wonderful. So what is the future of medicine in your mind? What do you think will come from this new certification agency, the Plantration Project, and more physicians just like you who are learning about this?
I really think it's going to have to be that we look at the root cause of chronic diseases. We've just been, like Peter likes to say, like Dr. Greger likes to say, is we've been mopping the floor with pills and procedures for a very long time. And lifestyle medicine is something that can help us turn off the faucet. And it's time that we did that because we're really having a healthcare crisis in this country. And, you know, whether it's Democrats or Republicans, people are talking about how to solve the healthcare crisis. And really, without us as people, patients, and individuals also taking responsibility and also changing our lifestyle, we're not going to be able to solve the healthcare crisis. Part of it needs to be us working towards it as well.
Absolutely. So how can others help with this? I mean, like Dr. Barnard said, the way to help is make noise. What more advice would you have for those of us who share your passion?
Yeah, so my advice is speak up. Don't be shy. And this is coming from somebody like me who really didn't speak up most of my life. I've been very shy, very introverted, but with this, I'm really passionate. So I'm speaking up, and I'm encouraging you to speak up too. So that speaking up could be, and speak up nicely and kindly and lovingly. Speaking up doesn't mean that we need to be picking fights with anybody out there. We're here really to make the world a better place in terms of whether environment or animals or just the health of our fellow human beings, right? So speak up in the sense that let people know that you're doing this in a very non-judgmental way and that it's helping your health. It's improving your health. A lot of time everybody wants to be happier, healthier, and have a more vibrant life. Who doesn't want that? And the other thing is, like I said, with your doctors, just kind of gently educate them saying, doc, I feel a lot better on the plant-based lifestyle. And can you check my cholesterol numbers to see if they're better? Or, can you check my B12 level to make sure that my supplements are okay, or if I need to adjust them in any way? And, just kind of plant those seeds in people you come across. And another thing that I've learned to speak up about is when I go to the restaurants. Again, be very nice to the waiter, but let them know that you would like this meal made without any animal products and also without oil. That's something that I just now started requesting. And the thing is, most of the time they can do it. And then, give them a sweet, nice tip so they have nice things of, yes, you were a little demanding, but at least you asked nicely and then you left a nice tip. So next time they have a plant-based or a vegan client, they'll be understanding of them and they'll be nice to them because they've had good experiences before. So just things like that. Just speak up, but speak up lovingly.
That's wonderful. Which is what I see the people around us doing. So, Lynn, might you have some questions for Dr. Chawla, or would any of our listeners like to ask a question of Dr. Chawla?
Well, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate you asking. I love how Dr. Chawla spoke about the speak up and don't be shy. I think that's something that we all end up being in that space. And I was just sharing a bit earlier about the time when it really impacted me to understand how our bodies actually hold things that are foreign to us. And I know that, we're talking about the pills and the things that we think are helping us that are actually harming us. And I think it's important to tell our stories. So I will do that really quickly because I shared, and I think that it's important because it was like a real light bulb moment for me. About 8 years ago, I had knee surgery, and I was recovering well, but I knew, how you know that something is still wrong. And it was about a year later, and I was still not back to me. And I went to a networking group meeting, and a woman was there, and she was a doctor, but she was doing essential oils. And somehow she had something that she was measuring where I want to say there was additional heat coming off of my body, which I now know is an indicator that something is not right in a particular area. And so she went around my head, she went around my body, and she was noticing my head and my knee. And so she inquired, what's up with your knee? I said, I had knee surgery about a year ago. And she's like, that explains it. I didn't have to tell her anything else. And she was saying that anesthesia is one of those things that we get that is foreign to our bodies. And there are certain things that reminded me of the cheese, the opiate in the cheese, and how it keeps bringing us back to the things that support it versus the things that our body is really asking for. And so she told me 2 things to do. I did them, and I honestly, within a week, I felt like a different person. I felt like I was getting back to me. And those 2 things were eat more raw vegetables, salad, your broccoli and carrots and, all of that, your peppers. And the other thing was essential oils. Rub your feet, put some behind your ears, and I'm telling you, in a week it was like a cloud moved right across my, right out of the way, and I could see colors and vibrancy, and I was so amazed. I was like, okay, I've got that secret. But people tend to, I don't want to say revert, but lessen the amount of support that they had given themselves at one point, and not necessarily revert all the way back, but lose a little bit of that incentive to be right on top of things. How do you encourage your patients to stay on top of this movement forward? And I like that too, that plant forward lifestyle.
Yeah, so you're right. A lot of us are have the incentive when we're not feeling well. And then when we get over whatever it is, then a lot of times we go back to the old habits that had led to the disease in the first place. And so that's why I tell them that's okay. We all fall off, but we can get back on. And I tell them that's why I'm here, to remind them to do that. And that's why we check their labs and see that their diabetes is now coming back, or their fatty liver is now coming back. Another thing I like to tell my patients about is the blue zones. Are you familiar with the blue zones, Lynn?
A little, yes.
So there are these parts of the world where people live a really long life, but they live a really healthy life as well. So these zones have a lot of centenarians, people living over 100 years old, but these 102, 103-year-olds don't have dementia and are not using cane or walker. Some of them are still biking around their village, doing their activities of daily living. And it turns out a lot of these blue zones, even though they're far away from each other geographically and culturally, one of the main things they have in common is they eat mainly a plant-based diet. So I remind them that my goal as their primary care physician is for them to be healthy in their 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s, and continue to have happy, healthy, and vibrant lives. And part of doing that is doing lifestyle medicine, because lifestyle medicine, it turns out, is focusing on the same thing, that when you look up the blue zones, those are the behaviors that they're practicing.
I love that. Okay, I'm sold.
We're all sold. But hey, we do have a question from the audience now, Dr. Chawla. One of our listeners would like to know, how do you test for fatty liver?
Oh, it's part of the Comprehensive Metabolic Panel, the CMP. CMP will check your electrolytes, your sugar, your kidney function, and your liver function. And the liver function numbers get elevated. And, you know, funny thing, fatty liver is something relatively new in human history. Because when I was in medical school, we were starting to see these, and we were like, oh, we got to check for hepatitis A, B, and C. Oh, we got to check for alcoholic liver cirrhosis. You know, the liver tests are elevated. We got to do an abdominal ultrasound. And then, but they didn't have alcoholic liver cirrhosis. They didn't have hepatitis. It was fat on the liver that was causing abnormal liver function tests. And when I was in medical school, we were told, oh, that's completely benign. That's just fatty liver causing the liver test. We don't have to worry about that. Well, soon we realized that no, we do need to worry about that, because fatty liver can also lead to cirrhosis of the liver, just like hepatitis and alcoholic liver dysfunction. And the funny thing is, for most other things, we have a pill to give, right? But fatty liver is one thing we still don't have a pill for. So if they have high cholesterol, they don't have to change their diet. They just take a cholesterol pill. They have diabetes, a lot of times doctors don't even tell them to change their diet. They're just told to take a diabetes pill. But for fatty liver, they have to change their diet because there is no pill.
Interesting. Well, another listener has asked, he is a little bit late to this webinar, but he would like for you to just very briefly maybe summarize again your points made about the dairy products. He already is a believer in the, reducing or eliminating of dairy, but he would just like to hear you summarize again briefly your take on dairy.
Sure. I don't remember exactly what I said before, but mainly I brought up that there's a link between dairy and acne. There's a link between dairy and allergies, link between dairy and asthma, a link between dairy and certain hormonally related cancers like breast cancer and prostate cancer. Also, actually, I didn't mention this before, but link between dairy and Parkinson's disease came out in October of 2015. Especially for some reason in male patients, more than female patients. So lots of, and the other thing I went into was the hormones are so high in dairy. And the other thing I went into was insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1, being high in dairy, that causes cells to grow rapidly. Because like we said, a 65-pound calf is supposed to drink this fluid and become a 1,500-pound cow in just 2 years. So this fluid is made to make things grow very quickly, very rapidly, just proliferate cells. And it causes cancer cells to proliferate as well. So it increases chances of one, cancer cells growing, and two, metastasis as well.
Right. He's agreeing with you in the summary in the chat. He's saying, thank you very much, Dr. Chawla.
Sure.
Do you have any more questions? Oh, here's another one. Another listener is asking about the dangers of consuming eggs.
Yeah, so eggs, the biggest thing that comes up is cholesterol. So one egg yolk, I believe, has 66% of the cholesterol that you need in a day. So if you're eating 2 eggs, you're already over your limit. So very high in cholesterol. And in terms of people who say, well, I don't eat the yolk, I just eat the white. Even white, because it's high in animal protein, it will increase your IGF-1, and it will cause the issues related to animal protein. There was a study that Joel Furman often cites that shows that just eating 3 eggs a week will increase your risk of diabetes quite significantly.
Wow.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Well, we're nearing the hour mark. Lynn, any more?
Wow. And of course, I'm thinking up more questions at this point. You mentioned something briefly a little earlier, Dr. Chawla, about supplements. And I know that a lot of people think that, you know, they can offset some of the things that they're eating by taking supplements that do this, that, or the other, or enhance what they feel their body needs by taking supplements and eating whatever. Can you address your thoughts around supplements?
So in general, we don't recommend supplements. A lot of the studies are showing, so in terms of being vegan plant-based, we do recommend B12 supplements unless you are eating a lot of nutritional yeast, which I have some patients who eat a lot of nutritional yeast, and I check their B12 level and it's perfectly normal, and I say, okay, well, that's fine, just keep doing that. But in general, that's the one thing that we do supplement. But everything else, you on a plant-based diet are going to get way better than other people. So part of the problem with supplements, like they're starting to even bring supplements of phytonutrients, right? Like lutein and resveratrol. But what they're finding out, one, those are not useful because our body really doesn't know what to do with that by itself. Like lutein is very important for eye health, right? But when we eat greens, the body knows exactly how to use it. But when you give lutein by itself, it really doesn't know what to do with it. And it may be that in greens, lutein comes with some other things that help us absorb the lutein. We don't know. Same thing with resveratrol. When you're eating grapes, red grapes, maybe it comes with some other things that help you absorb the resveratrol. Whereas when they're giving the resveratrol pills for anti-aging and antioxidant benefits, they're not seeing them. These eye vitamins and things that are on the market that we are wanting that to take care of things, it turns out they're not working. And some of them are actually showing increased mortality. Like some of the calcium supplements and some of the other supplements people are taking, instead of showing benefit, it's showing risks of taking it. So really, nature for thousands of years has known what to do with food. The vitamin stuff is very new for us, and it really doesn't know what to do, and it doesn't know when it comes by itself. And often, but when it comes by itself without other things that it's usually packaged with, it can be harmful. So just eat food like a package and don't try to do the reductionist approach of taking this vitamin or taking that vitamin. It just doesn't work.
It's very much a Dr. T. Colin Campbell philosophy.
Yeah, yeah.
One listener is asking about your thoughts on CBD oil. Do you have an opinion on that?
You know, I haven't researched it that much yet, so I probably shouldn't talk much about it. I do have some patients who do use it and who do tell me that it absolutely helps them. But I have not looked into the research myself.
Interesting. Another patient is mentioning that sometimes there may be differences in Dr. Barnard's nutritional philosophy and that of Dr. Greger. I'm not really aware of too many things that they would disagree on, but do you notice any difference in their philosophy?
I mean, in the plant-based movement, most of us are pretty much in agreement on most things, and that, you know, includes McDougall and Greger and Esselstyn and Barnard, all of us. But there are a few things here and there. One of the things that comes up is nuts and seeds. Greger really recommends nuts and seeds, and Esselstyn does not want you to do nuts and seeds.
Right.
And there's actually a reason for that. And it's because Greger is talking about general population, and they should eat nuts and seeds. And Esselstyn is trying to reverse heart disease. he's trying to get people who have blockages in their arteries to get those blockages to go away. And to do that, you really have to be on a very low calorie diet where you're chewing your greens several times a day and releasing that nitric oxide, and not eating the high calorie foods, not oil, not even nuts and seeds. Because there are even differences in, should you have green smoothies or should you chew your greens? And if you can't get greens by chewing all day long, then by all means, I think drink your green smoothie. But Esselstyn doesn't want you to drink them because he wants you to chew the greens, because that releases the chewing, releases the nitric oxide, which helps you unclog the arteries. So it's just a matter of how what you're working on to reverse which chronic disease that it may seem like they disagree, but there's usually a reason.
I think we agree far more
than we disagree. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So,
Well,
Dr. Chawla, what do you recommend as far as, many of us are parents or grandparents, and, we've brought our kids up, if they're, young kids or teenagers, and they have become used to what we were doing before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're making these transitions. Any suggestions on how to bring our kids and grandkids into this as well?
I would say just by being a good role model yourself and just setting a good example. Because I'm in the same boat. Like, I started late, so my kids were eating a certain way. And then you can't all of a sudden make it super strict, right? I mean, my kids are vegan at home because I don't bring anything, but at home, but in school, or when we're in Costa Rica for 2 weeks with their school group, they're going to eat other things. And I understand it's difficult out there for kids. But I'm hoping that when they're ready, and when they're able, they'll become plant-based like me. But right now, they're mostly vegan, mostly pescatarian when they do have to eat out. Yeah, but all I can do is set a good example. They see me getting healthier, and hopefully this is going somewhere back there in their subconscious. The seeds are being planted, and once I tell my husband, once they find a nice vegan girlfriend in college, she'll finish off the job that we started.
Let's hope they're there.
Yeah.
The vegan girlfriends are there.
Yeah.
Okay, so G has a comment for you. So he's just trying to make sure that nitric oxide is released in the digestive tract, even if one consumes the greens through a smoothie, right?
Well, not as much.
Not as much.
Apparently, according to Esselstyn, it's the chewing that releases it way more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, G's asking how much less.
Oh, I would not know. I would have to look it up. But there are so many. If you don't have heart disease, then by all means, there's so many other benefits of greens that if you're not going to chew it every day and you don't have the time to chew it, it's a large amount. It's a lot of chewing. It gets my jaw tired. Whereas smoothie, just putting a steel straw in, I can get a large amount of greens in my body and get other benefits of greens, like the ones for eyes and the ones for, metabolism. Green smoothies really improve your metabolism and help you lose weight. So you can still get the other benefits.
Dr. Chawla, you mentioned something that was recently, a few months ago, brought to my attention, and that's the steel straws. How did you find out about it? What made you want to switch over, and are you talking about it?
I found out about it from Brooke Goldner. Lisa and I were just talking about her. I think she's going to come on Just One Thing for Health later. But yeah, there at Amazon, you get 4 steel straws and you get 1 straw brush. And it just makes it, because, one of the things Gregor says is it's not good for our teeth, right? Drinking sweet smoothies, because I do put some fruit in my green smoothies too. So So for that reason, and it's quicker to drink with the straw for me, and also it keeps my enamel okay.
Right.
Great, great. Thank you. This was so good. So good.
G has one more comment. Citrus is also not good for the teeth enamel, and that's
That is
something
true.
we've learned before in previous calls.
Yep.
Juice or whatever. The citrus on the enamel is hard too.
I know so many things to to watch out for.
Right. But so many benefits
You're
of
right.
consuming it.
Yeah.
So even if we did forget and
Yeah.
let the citrus be on our enamel, I think we still have far more benefits than we have risks. So, I think it was a great call tonight, Lynn. How about you?
I do. I think so as well. And I'm going to bring things to a close with asking Dr. Chawla, you know, we're moving into the holiday season, and we're looking at, you know, all kinds of things coming across our path. And if we're new in this whole food plant-based space or not, do you have one thing that you might tell our audience about how to effectively and how to better move through the holiday season that we're coming upon?
Yeah. So apparently, most Americans gain 2 to 3 pounds over the holidays, which includes Thanksgiving and Christmas time and New Year's. And most of them never lose it, right? So it gets to be 2 to 3 pounds every year. By 20 years, that's 40 pounds that they're heavier than they used to be in their 20s. So holidays is a time to really be very mindful, because there's so many temptations all around. At your workplace, everybody's bringing Christmas cookies and various other treats. For my patients, I tell them, blame it on me. Tell them my doctor won't let me eat that. My doctor is super mean and she is not going to, I can't do it. If she finds out if I cheat, my blood level comes back abnormal or whatever. I say, you know, you don't have to be the bad guy. You can make me the bad guy. So whatever it takes, you don't want to be offending people, but there are ways you can be creative and come up with a way to where you can say no, but still make them feel special. Mainly people want to know that they're still important to you. And sometimes we feel like we have to eat what they made to make them think that way, but we can use other ways to make them realize that they're still very special to us and we appreciate them in so many ways, but we're just not allowed to eat this.
Thank you. That was great.
All right.
So, Lisa, you want to close us up here?
Oh, sure. I was waiting for you, Lynn. I was going to let you do it. But I want to thank everybody who came to listen to our call tonight. And most of all, I want to thank you, Dr. Bandana Chawla, for being a great plant-based lifestyle motivated physician who really gets it, and you're willing to share your message with everyone, especially the listeners, for Just One Thing for Health. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Lynn, for backing us up all nicely on the call.
Well, thank you, Lisa. And thanks to Dr. Chawla. Thanks to our audience for joining us. And we are here to support you through the holidays as well. So keep an eye out for all that we're going to be sharing with you through the Just One Thing for Health program. Watch out for your emails. Find us on social media. If you haven't already joined our Facebook group, the Hippocrates Docs Facebook group, find us, join us, because we've got some special things for you over the holidays to help you to stay on your whole food plant-based diet and into your lifestyle for the new year. So once again, everybody, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Chawla. This was so great.
It was my pleasure. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.